This dirty fighter head-butted his opponent, and he paid for it with broken ribs. The year is 2021. Marcus Browne is one of the most feared power punchers in the history of the light heavyweight division, with an incredible record of 24 victories and 1 loss. But he is also one of the dirtiest. The veteran from New York is a master of the dark arts, a plan B for when the fight is not going his way. The southpaw has disguised headbutts that have cut his opponents and himself, horribly resulting in some of the bloodiest fights in the history of boxing. In the 8th round of his WBA interim and WBC silver light heavyweight titles defense against Jean Pascal, Browne was severely cut after a headbutt, causing the ringside physician to immediately stop the fight. Browne again clashed heads with Badou Jack in the 7th round of that bloody fight in 2019, when Jack sustained a horrific vertical cut to the forehead. Blood leaked all over the cage, and it got so messy that Tony Weeks, the referee, was covered in blood, and was even seen washing his shirt in the public loos after in front of stunned fight fans. That bout ended in a unanimous decision victory for Browne. But Browne's dirty antics were not limited to the ring. He was arrested for the 4th time in 18 months for recurring incidents with his ex-girlfriend, when he reportedly forced his way into her apartment and refused to leave, having choked the same woman some months back and attempted to break into her apartment previously. There was no jail time, no probation. But every dirty fighter will meet his executioner at some point. In the year 2021, the Dagestani Artur Beterbiev, a humble but yet accomplished fighter from Russia, volunteered to take on Browne, putting his WBC and IBF light heavyweight titles on the line. Much like the Hulk, Beterbiev, or Beterbiev as fans call him, was not one to mess with. The Khabib of boxing has a style that is very much a product of the former Soviet system. He took part in over 300 amateur fights, representing Russia at international level, and had an untouchable pro record of 17 wins and no losses, all inside the distance. He is the only world champion in boxing with a 100% knockout ratio, but there is something very subtle behind the power of the Russian fighter. Beterbiev has the kind of power that can turn your teeth to dust but leave the fillings. Their fight was set for the 17th of December 2021 in Beterbiev's home country of Canada at the Bell Centre in Montreal, Quebec. The face-off was an intense one. They meanly stared each other eye to eye, and neither fighter agreed to look away for 30 seconds, perhaps promising a load of brutality behind the COVID masks. From the first round, Beterbiev began to pick up the keys to crack Browne's defenses. Like in his other fights, he stalked his prey, throwing few punches as he downloaded Browne's game plan and weaknesses. Browne seemed to have the right idea early, using his footwork and length to stay away from Beterbiev, but it also meant he was burning energy early with every bouncing footwork and hard counter. Beterbiev was losing on the scorecards but was winning the fight. By the start of the 3rd round, Beterbiev had downloaded Browne's tactics and was ready to let his hands go. The rounds of demolition were upon us. Browne started to feel cornered. He needed a way out of the impending mess. At that point, Beterbiev, having finished all his adversaries before Browne, smelled blood. Rather, it was his own blood. The fight turned for good on a nasty clash of heads in round 4, which left both fighters bloodied. A desperate Browne had lunged forward and sneakily hid the headbutt behind a right-hand punch he threw almost simultaneously. Beterbiev had a deep gash that poured blood from the center of his forehead, while Browne was leaking a little from outside the eye. Referee Michael Griffin deemed the headbutt unintentional, like all of Browne's other fights where he head-butted his opponents. But unknown to Browne, nobody makes Beterbiev bleed his own blood. Nobody. To loud chants from the home crowd, Beterbiev became more intense, and it didn't take long for Browne to realize the grave he had dug for himself. Like a Russian bear, he had Browne cornered right where he wanted. At the end of the 4th round, the doctors examined the cut, and at the beginning of the 5th, the referee told Beterbiev that he may only be allowed one more round due to the cut. According to the words of Beterbiev's own coaches, he became a bit like an animal. Beterbiev is not a man you want to make angry. His undefeated record was in jeopardy. Despite the impeded vision and the alarming loss of blood, he didn't fight like the cut was bothering him. He didn't try to protect the cut. It was just seek and destroy. Beterbiev's cutman wasted his biggest Q-tips on the impossible task of trying to quell the open wound. The best finisher in the light heavyweight division wanted a finish, and not even the blood trickling into his eyes was going to stop him. Brown narrowly avoided crumpling to the floor in the final exchange of the 6th round, only to get sent to the canvas viciously in the 7th round. Beterbiev pounded his ribs to powder and attacked Brown's head with relentless combinations. It was scary watching the will to fight fade from Marcus's eyes, and Beterbiev's predatory instincts were on full display. Beterbiev brutally finished the fight in the 9th round with one of the smoothest finishes you will ever see.
For him. And down he goes after a hard left uppercut. How much more can Marcus Brown take? 8, 9, 10.
A hard left uppercut spelt the end of Brown's aspirations, and the champion maintained his unbeaten record and knockout streak. 3 years later, that unbeaten record and knockout streak is still intact, and 20 knockouts. With the undisputed middleweight title against Dmitry Bivol incoming, there may be much more to come for the Russian destroyer. Time will tell.